ooh, if I share what I really want, then I can be rejected on that thing that I really want. So not only will someone see more of me, but they'll say no. It's like, I'm not going to tell you what I want, because what if you don't give me what I want? And then I end up like screwed. I'm not going to do that. So it's interesting that I see like that reflected internally, which is sort of what I feel externally as well.
Yeah, not only might I be rejected, but I might be rejected for who I am in that desire. This person sees me now.
Totally.
And it's like, they're not just rejecting my request, they're rejecting me, the more authentic, honest me.
Yes. I find it really interesting that, like, again, when I try and reflect on that, it's like this inner part is also like, no, I'm not going to share that with you. You can't know that part of me, because then what if you say no? And then you know what I want, but you're also not giving it to me. I will not stand for that.
Welcome to Slow Down to Speed Up, where we have real one-time coaching sessions with startup founders working through the challenges of leadership. I'm your host and executive coach, Brian Wang. Today in the show, we have Nina Iordanova, a driven startup leader who's grappling with the dilemma many high achievers face. How do you balance the urge to constantly push forward with the desire to simply enjoy life as it unfolds? It's a tension that can leave even the most successful individuals feeling conflicted and unsure. Nina comes to the session trying to figure out why she feels compelled to analyze and justify every single one of her decisions. This can be a really uncomfortable topic to explore because it forces us to confront the contradictions within ourselves. On one hand, we have this drive to achieve and excel, pushing us to always do more. On the other, there's a part of us that yearns for peace, contentment, and the simple joy of being present. When these two sides are at odds, it can feel like we're at war with ourselves, leading to a deep sense of unease and self-doubt. But here's the thing. What if slowing down could actually help us speed up? What if creating space for all of our experiences, even the uncomfortable ones, can lead to more authentic and effective living? In this session, Nina uncovers some surprising insights about shame, fear, and the power of self-acceptance. She discovers that sometimes the path to growth isn't about pushing harder, but rather it's about welcoming all parts of ourselves. By the end of our session, Nina gains a new perspective on decision-making and finds some practical steps to navigate this internal tension in her life and leadership. If you've ever felt torn between conflicting parts of yourself or struggled to find balance in your own life, this episode might just offer the insights you've been looking for. Let's tune in and see what this journey takes us. Enjoy. Hey, Nina, it's so great to see you.
Brian, so good to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm super pumped to be here with you. And, you know, we spoke a little bit about coming on here and having a session. And so we're just going to kick it off. I'm going to ask you, what are we here for?
Awesome.
What are we getting into?
We're going to get into something I've been thinking about for a little while, which is, I think, just this tension between how do you kind of feel like you're making the most out of your life? And then also, how do you relax into whatever is happening? And just to like flesh that out a little bit more, I feel like, honestly, I'm happiest when opportunities come to me and I can just be like, yeah, this looks great. Awesome. I'll do it. But I feel like if I'm just waiting for external things to happen, I'm like, but what if, does that mean I'm not applying myself? Does not mean I'm not really like pushing myself to make the most of opportunities? Does that mean I'm just settling for whatever's coming to me? And it almost feels like I should be working really hard as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not, then it's like, oh, well, you're not really making the most of the opportunities you have. You're not really going for what you want. You're just settling for what's coming to you.
Yeah.
And I think just trying to figure out, like, how do you navigate these two things that seem very at odds with each other? Like, if I push really hard, I'm not super happy. If I don't push, I feel like I'm missing out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So there's just off the bat, you're bringing up this tension where you seem to have identified this idea that in order to feel happy or satisfied, I have to push. There's this thing around making sure I live my life like maximizing my potential.
Yes, totally.
But you also notice, it sounds like, that when you do that, there comes a point where that actually starts to have a negative effect on just quality of life, enjoyment, etc.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a spectrum is what I'm hearing from the get-go. It's like, but if you're relaxing too much, then there's a sense of like, I'm missing out. I'm missing out on my potential.
Totally.
And so it sounds like right now where you are is you're like, how do I navigate that is the word you use, I think. How do I navigate that, or how do I balance that is kind of the high level of what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah.
I suspect that it's not a new dynamic for you, So tell me a little bit about how this tension has gone for you historically.
Yeah, so I think it's only new in the sense that like I can put more words to it and I can see it when it happens versus just like constantly being in it. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
in terms of being in it, it's like a lifelong thing. Um, and I'd say I started very much on the end of like you have to push yourself as hard as possible. You have to go for every opportunity, not just like put yourself in the ring, but push to be at the very top. Um, and that's even like, applying for university. Like I applied for the best business school I could find and the best theater school.
Mm.
Um,
It's like the achiever in you.
Totally,
Mm-hmm.
totally. And I think what you said about maximizing your potential, like there's a lot of things tied into that word,
Yeah.
of like wanting to be the best, wanting to achieve, wanting to do everything. Um, and it's funny, like a few weeks ago, I was talking to Matt, the Matt that you introduced me to, like the coach that I've been working with. And I was like, I don't know if complaining was the right word, but I was like, oh, I'm like doing coaching and I'm also doing this part time like consulting work with a friend. And I'm also doing these like photo shoots with, I used to be an actor, now I'm doing modeling, I guess. And I'm also like writing my newsletter and I'm also playing beach volleyball 3 times a week. And I'm also playing Dungeons and Dragons and I'm doing this and this and this and this and this. And I was
And
like,
do you have
man,
to be the best at all those things? Just curious.
I guess in that way, I'd say, oh, man, each one of those is like a thing into and of itself.
Yeah.
But I think in that I was more looking at it like I'm making the most of my summer. Every hour I have something going on. There is no
Yeah.
hour that I am wasting. But when I looked at that, I was like, that is so much. Like that's not when I look at my days, I'm not necessarily like, oh my God, I'm so excited to wake up to 18 different things to do from today into eternity.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow, okay, this feels like a really big load to carry. But look, it's all fun. Look at you getting to develop all these different skills and do all these fun things. That's so great. So I feel like that's already one thing where I really, really see it is just this idea of even how do I spend my time?
One of the things I noticed in just your reflection just now is that your voice changes when you talk about this. You're like, "Look at me, I'm making the most out of my summer," or like, "Oh, I guess I'm doing all this." Da da da. Oh, like, I'm curious what's happening for you. Like, maybe more specifically, like, who are you speaking to when you're in that voice?
So I think part of it is just like me wanting to perform and show the difference between the two sides.
Sure.
And then I think there's also a bit of an association of like, look, you got to be strong to do all these different things, but it's good for you. That is the thing that will
There it is
ultimately,
again. Yeah. Tell me about like who's speaking there.
I think who's speaking is the thing that I think, how do I put it? Like that sounds right, but that I don't feel is right. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like, listen, realistically speaking, it makes sense that you do all these things. Look at the benefits that will come from it. But then
Okay.
if I speak from my own perspective, I'm like, I don't love this situation. I don't know if I love
Okay.
this.
So there's like some part of you that's saying, essentially saying you should be doing this, and they're almost like trying to sell the benefits to you, and then you're like hearing it almost skeptically.
I think so. And like, I can't even really own that voice because when I go in the other direction, if I'm like, okay, cool, well, drop 8 of these things, just do 2 of them,
Mm-hmm.
then it's back to like, oh, really? You're just not going to do anything with your time? Really? You're just going to leave it wide open and see what drops in and hopefully it's going to be good? Yeah, that's how you're going to live your life?
Uh-huh.
So it's like a flip always comes no matter which end of that spectrum I'm leaning into.
Yeah. So there's like this task manager that is saying, fill your days and it's going to be great. And come on, like this is going to make your like each and every moment like amazing. And you ought to love this. You should love this. Is it
Or should at
is that
least
the
do
same
it.
voice that's like, what are you doing when you like start to drop some things from the list?
I think so. And I think it takes on like a different flavor, let's say, like a different tone. But I think the underlying thing of like, why are you doing it like this? This isn't the right
Yeah,
approach.
for those who are
Is there?
listening, Nina is like jabbing her finger at the camera,
Yeah.
just like, "Ah." Huh. Okay. Okay, so let me ask you this question. Um, let's just pretend for a moment that this voice was not present whatsoever
Yeah.
in your experience.
Hmm.
It wasn't trying to cajole you or convince you to do anything. It wasn't like
poking at you and criticizing you, when it noticed that you were relaxing? What would life be like in that movie?
It's so interesting because, like, as you started to talk, I started to imagine it. And I think there was like a quarter of a millisecond where that thought existed. And then immediately, like, it's like the voice just holds hands with him. It's like, no, I'm here. Hey, I'm still here. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
interesting. You're like attached. Like, I
Hmm.
can't imagine a life that's just me doing what I want or relaxed.
Yeah. It sounds like that this part of you has been around for a long time and really is working hard to like do its job. It's not wanting at
Yeah.
all to let you even entertain the idea of it not being here.
Yeah. Because my first thought was like, oh my God, I could just like accept that I want to do things that come to me versus putting in a ton of effort to like source opportunities or I don't know, like even
Hmm.
thinking about work, the two jobs that I've had, like quote unquote jobs, let's say in the tech industry,
Yeah.
both of them came to me by somebody else essentially reaching out and being like, hey, we have a role. I think you'd be a good fit. Are you interested? And I said yes to both opportunities. And like, I'm so happy
Yeah.
with doing that. But I think there's a part that's like, well, should you be looking more? Should you be like trying to find other options that then you can compare and then you can see that you've actually made the right decision versus
Yeah.
just the thing that fell? Um, so yeah, when I imagine like, oh, what would life without that voice look like? I'm like, oh, I could just be like, yeah, I'm okay with this. I honestly don't want to compare. This opportunity in and of itself feels interesting enough to me.
Hmm.
I don't want to have to compare. Almost like, I don't know, if you're going to buy, I'm trying to think, like let's say AirPods or whatever,
Sure.
headphones.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, do I want in ear? Do I want over my head? Do I want it wireless? Do I want it corded? Well, do I want Apple? Do I want Sony? Do I want white ones? Like you could run this whole analysis on all these different things and be like, okay, after my 3-day intensive analysis, I've decided these are the truly the objectively best ones. Like I don't
Okay.
want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Because that
maybe
sounds exhausting, by the way.
yes, which is also a thing I love to do. I love to do this like, let me Uber Eats, let me open 8 carts of different food options, and then I'll narrow them down, and then I'll cross compare, and then I'll see. And at the end of 40 minutes, I'll close all the carts because I'm exhausted and I don't want to order any of the things. So maybe that's like actually
Yeah.
kind of at the core of what I'm saying is like,
There's this like thing where you're really wanting to make sure you land on the right decision.
yes, yes. And I
Yeah.
feel like, okay, if I'm not running this wild analysis
Yeah.
and I'm just accepting the first thing that seems like interesting,
Hmm.
then there's a part of me that's like, oh God, oh
Yeah.
God, but what are you missing out on? How
Oh
do you know this
God.
isn't this
Yeah.
thing?
And what's the feeling? What's the feeling underneath that? Like I hear there's like this whole dynamic where it's like I have to compare, I have to optimize.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the way I hear that, like I have to employ that strategy so that I don't have to feel something in particular that's like that. Oh God, like what's that? And I want to invite you just to slow down for a
Yeah.
moment. I see you looking up.
I think one thing came immediately. I'm just trying to see if that's actually, I'm running an analysis to see if anything else comes up and if that is
Yeah.
truly the truest
I
thing.
want to invite you to drop the analysis for a moment and just see what you notice in your body.
Uh,
We were just having this conversation before the call started.
yeah.
So just slow down and see what you notice that's there.
I think two things come up sort of at the same time, where one is like a lot of just ease and relaxation and joy of like, great, I can just do this thing. Awesome, let's keep moving forward. And then almost at the same time, it's like, oh God, but what if I'm wrong? And then I have no way to defend the choice that I made because I can't be like, well, listen, I compared the in ear headphones and I compared the wireless, and honestly, the extra cost of $200 didn't really seem like it was worth it. And then
Hmm.
if I run that analysis, I feel like I have reasons to justify the choices that I made. So if, I don't know, external somebody, or if I had to be like, well, why did you make this wrong choice? I can defend it and justify it.
Okay, so what I hear in that is that there's some sense that if I don't run the analysis, then there will be some moment where I have to defend my choice
Totally.
to
Totally.
somebody. And if I haven't done that, then I can't defend it.
Yes.
And then if I can't defend this thing that I actually chose, what's the feeling there?
I think definitely like scary, naked, vulnerable,
Uh-huh.
like exposed sort of.
This tell me if this lands, but
Yeah,
what I'm hearing in that is there's something really scary and vulnerable about simply owning the thing that you want, like
totally.
owning your desire, even if it's just like I
Horrifying.
want this set of headphones.
Yes. Yes.
What's what's coming up for you as I say that?
Hmm. I think just one part is just surprised that that's the core of what it is.
Hmm.
And then the second part is even like, oh, cool. If I follow that train of thought, like, what if I do just say, yeah, I want it because I want it? There's no further supporting evidence to say this is the right thing to want or to like justify it. It's just,
Yeah.
I want it because that's what's,
Yeah.
I don't know what I want. I feel like I can't even like go further than that. I just stop there and I'm like,
Yeah.
ah, is that allowed?
Hmm.
What if somebody says no, or what if that's not right?
Yeah. So there's like some sense of like I just what I watched happen is you're getting in touch with a sense of authentic desire. Like I want this thing. That's good enough reason for wanting it. And then it's like you hit this moment where like, but wait,
Yes.
what is that okay? Like there was some permission that seemed to
Totally.
be like that you were seeking.
It's even like I have a dog, and if there's a balcony and it's high up, she'll just like she loves being outside, but she'll just sort of stick her head right at the edge, and then she'll like with one paw really gently, like not even touch the balcony floor,
Yeah.
and then she'll just pull it in and be like, but she won't go outside, and so it feels sort of the same. Where I'm like sticking my head out a little bit. I'm like, oh, you can't. What happens if you just walk out of this door
Yeah.
saying, yeah, I just want it because I want it? Like, what?
They do say that pets and owners are alike, you know? So it sounds like you guys share that in common.
And I think like if I bring it back to the first thing that I brought in, which is, what is this tension between doing all the things that I think I should be doing as well as I can and trying to really push and analyze
Hmm.
versus just like doing the things that come to me and that feels so easy and just letting life unfold.
Yeah.
I think I can map those like pretty closely of, oh, what if I just did the things that I wanted
Yeah.
and trusted that that was enough without needing to prove or justify
Yeah.
versus, oh, but you need to like you're just allowed to leave yourself alone and want what you want,
Yeah.
but where does that take you? And
But
what if
then
it
you'd also
doesn't
have
take
to
you anywhere?
feel something scary around it, is what it seems to me.
Yes. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, because again, when I picture like, okay, what if you're allowed to want what you want? I just feel like sort of the fear arising, and I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
what do you do with that?
What if you just allowed it to be here right now? No need to resist
Mm.
it or push it away.
Hmm. It's like a mix of enticing and exciting,
Hmm.
and a mix of like, you're telling me to go out in like a hail of arrows, wearing absolutely nothing, and just being like, yeah, I'm sure this is totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like pretty certain that it's going to be a bad time.
Uh huh. So I wonder if we can just play with this for a second. So fear is generally going to be our brain's way of predicting something. It's predicting something's going to happen. And part of what makes fear and anxiety like really tricky is that sometimes the thing that it's predicting is really vague. So it's kind of vagueness is part of what gives it its power. right? Because we don't really like, if it's so vague, then it could be anything, right? Better lock myself up a little bit. So I
Right.
wonder if you were to spend a little bit of um, a moment just to see if you could get more specific. Like you mentioned, like there's a hail of arrows there. What is it that your system is predicting will happen when you're just like fully allowing yourself to want what you want and enjoy that?
I think so. Two things come up immediately. One is like, what if I hear no? And then that's like, oh, if I had arguments, I could like justify or I could convince or I could, lay out an argument for why this thing makes sense. Whereas if it's just, oh, I want it because I want it,
Yeah,
and then someone says no, it's like, oh, that feels like suddenly a lot more personal.
cool.
Um, and I think that's scary.
All right, so we're going to probably come back to that. And what's the second thing that came up?
I think, and then the second thing is if I, let's say, do something wrong or make the wrong choice, then it's like, wow, you're really stupid.
Hmm.
Like you just thought that was the way to go? Why? Oh, you don't know why? You just did it? Cool. You didn't stop to think about that?
Hmm.
You didn't stop to consider other options? Like I
Yeah,
think that question is very like I always want to be prepared for that and be like, no, I considered, look,
yeah,
these are the things. This is the Excel spreadsheet that I cross-referenced.
right. Yeah, which we
Yeah.
touched on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that there's like simply just somebody saying no to you. Like there's a moment you go out in the world and you ask for something that you want. That's generally how it works. Like you want
Yeah.
something, you'll have to ask somebody for it,
Yeah.
and they might say no. And then what you described was like, oh, like instantly your arguments need to come, come to the front line there. Like, no, let me convince you. So there's this experience of receiving a no that feels, you said personal. It's like really, really
Yeah.
um, scary in some way there. And then there was like this other thing that sounded like going back to this critical voice. It's like, oh, now this critical voice is going to be beating me up for getting it wrong. And like, how could you do this? And like, why didn't you think of this, this, and this, and this, and this? And
Yeah.
it's sort of kind of bullying you is a bit of what I hear.
Yeah. It's funny because that's what it feels like. Although almost like I know you're just trying to make sure I do the best thing and like it's looking out for me, but like in a very aggressive, off-putting, shutting down way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in some sense, like both of those, this might not make any sense, but in a
Mm.
sense, when I hear that, those two things, like the receiving the no and like the bullying, almost feel like the same thing. But I don't know if that's what's true for you. I'm curious. Are those the same thing,
Mm.
or do they feel different? And if they do feel different, which of those feels mm, more challenging for you?
Hmm. Hmm. I want to say they feel different, but let me just think on that a little bit. Hmm. Because it's I guess they're also related. Because when I think like, oh, what if I just said no? Or sorry, like let me back up. The context I'm thinking is somebody asked me out for dinner to a specific place, and in my head I was like, I don't want to go to that place. Like I like it, but I don't want to go right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, but I can't just say no because I don't want to. That's weird. And
Hmm.
immediately, like tied to that thought, I was like, oh, I should offer different options. I could look at different things, or I should say why I don't want to go there because I went recently and I need to like sort of. So I feel like that analysis and options is also tied to like,
So there's something around not just saying, there's something around like just simply wanting what you want and allowing that to be the case. But
yes.
also
Yeah.
there's something around like not being able to say no, like just not letting it be enough that you don't want something and for you just to say no to something.
I think so. Both to say no and to say yes to things where it's an unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I just want reasons to fall back on for everything, for yeses, for nos, for
Yeah.
maybes, for picking between things.
Yeah. So as I zoom out, it's like, oh, you're trying to like wrest control of the future, like wanting
Yes.
to stay in control of like what might happen whenever you want something or don't want something, because it's scary to not know what's going to happen when you respond to the world in some way, like with a yes or no.
And I feel like to not have control over the response as well.
Yeah.
It feels like to me like building a building with no foundation, and you're like, this could, any first wind would knock this thing down. This is not built in a way that's stable at all. And I think that's very scary to be like, oh, I have nothing else to say except no, I just want this.
Can we give that a try right here?
Yeah, in what way?
Like I'm noticing already that there's like something coming up for you. This
Mm,
sense of like what might happen. Like there's like I don't know what's about to happen.
yes.
So I want to see if I can. Let's try this. What if you were to ask me to do something right here, and you have no idea how I'm going to respond? And it could just be like anything. Like you could just ask me to like go blink my eyes 3 times or something. It does, whatever.
Um, okay,
But
could
here's the
you?
thing: it has to be something you genuinely want me to do.
Okay. Mm, could you uh, take your headphones off for a sec and just like muss hair a little bit, like run hands through hair?
Sure.
Beautiful. Also funny because the camera froze for half of that.
It'll show up. It'll show up.
I saw it happening. I saw it
All
happening.
right, let's try again. Something else.
Oh no. Uh, could you tell me the name of the city you were born in?
No.
Okay. Mm, could you move the mic 1 inch to the left?
No.
Okay.
What's allowing you to do this right now? You don't seem to be having a problem doing this.
I think because it's. Hmm. Hmm. Maybe because it's so like small and inconsequential.
Okay.
Yeah, that the want is more. But I don't like as I'm saying this, I just don't know if this would translate to outside of the session. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even if I was with a friend and there were some things small and inconsequential, like, oh, can we switch what sides of the road we're walking on, or I don't know,
Great.
whatever.
So maybe we can come up with a scenario that feels a little riskier. How about that?
Hmm. And I will add, just in case this is interesting, like one of the things I thought of is like, oh, I wonder if you could disconnect the wire from the headphones. But then I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, I don't know if that messes up the audio. I don't want us to do that because then what if that messes up the recording or when you get it back in? No, I don't like. I don't
You
want to
wouldn't
mess.
want to mess things up.
Totally,
Uh-huh.
totally. So I was like, I just don't want to. I'm not going to ask that.
Is that the fear that by asking for what you want or saying no, you'll mess things up?
I think for sure. I don't know if that's all of it, but for sure that's a big part. Yeah.
And if you mess things up, what will happen?
Hmm. I think anything between one, like losing respect in that person's eyes, or like losing care, losing regard, whatever, like just there being suddenly a rift,
Yeah.
all the way to like the relationship ending.
That sounds really risky.
Yeah. And I think that's like, there's no like, oh, no, it's going to be totally fine. I'm like, it starts with either there's a rift created and it ends with the relationship ending. And that's like the spectrum we play in as soon as you mess things up.
Yeah. So let me just reflect that back. It sounds like in some way, maybe many ways, you've learned that asking for what you want means, we talked about like what the brain's predicting. The
Yeah,
brain's going to predict that the relationship is now severed. I've lost connection.
I think so.
Test it
Yeah.
out. See what that feels like in your body as I'm saying that. If Nina goes out in the world,
Yeah.
she lets go of control. She says, "Here's what the thing I want." And you ask for it. There's like some sense that, disconnection, cut off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're
Yeah.
noticing?
Totally. And it feels like it's rising up like in the body, in the middle part, sort of. And then it just hits a point around my collarbones. And it's like, no, listen, it's not worth it. You don't really want this. You want the relationship more. You want this, oh, okay, cool. So then just leave this thing. Who
Yeah.
cares about this thing that you want?
Cool.
Yeah.
So what if you were just to put all your focus on that right now, this feeling that is rising? See if you can connect further to that. It sounds like some part of it's trying to protect you,
Mm-hmm.
avoid the disconnection. Just ask it, what does it need from you right now?
Hmm. Hmm. It's interesting because it's almost like a little uh, microcosm or a fractal where it's like, I guess part of my fear is, ooh, if I share what I really want, then I can be rejected on that thing that I really want. So not only will someone see more of me, but they'll say no. And so when I look at this part inside and I'm like, what do you want? It's like, fuck, or sorry, F you. I'm not going to tell
You
you
can
what I
swear on
want.
here.
Okay. I was like, I'm not going to tell you what I want because what if you don't give me what I want? And then I end up like screwed. I'm not going to do that. So it's interesting that I see like that reflected
Yeah.
internally, which is sort of what I feel externally as well.
Yeah. Not only might I be rejected, but I might be rejected for who I am in that desire.
Totally.
This
Totally.
person sees me now.
Totally.
And it's like they're not just rejecting my request, they're rejecting me, like the
Mhm.
the the more authentic, honest me.
Yes.
I just want to check that out and see if that's kind of how it
Totally.
feels.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting that like again when I try and reflect on that, it's like this inner part is also like, no, I'm not going to share that with you. You can't know that part of me because then what if you say no? And then you know what I want, but you're also not giving it to me. I will not stand for that.
What do you want to say to this part as
Yeah.
just as you're hearing it?
Hmm. Hmm. You know what? I think the only thing I'd want to say is like, yeah, I know that's really scary to do that. And I don't think I'd want to push or be like, no, you should. It'll be totally fine. Trust me. We'll figure. Like, no, I
Yeah.
just, yeah, I know it's hard.
Just give it a try. Just offer that,
Mhm.
exactly that, to this part of you right now.
Hmm. Yeah, it just feels like very defensive.
Yeah. I just want to make a suggestion then.
Yeah.
Just to let it know that you see its defensiveness and that you don't need it to change in any way.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that helps a little.
What do you notice? How does it respond?
I think it's just like a little calmer
Hmm.
and like less reactive.
Yeah.
So rather than being like fully activated like this, it's just a little bit more like, okay, I'm here, I'm having feelings, I'm having thoughts, but it's not like so aggressive, I guess.
Yeah. And if you go back to that sense that you have, it's just whatever impulse you have around like the thing that you're wanting, anything that you're wanting, whether it's asking for something so that you might get it or to say no to something, like how is that feeling right now?
I think still pretty scary, but like less activated.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You've been kind of in this habit, it sounds like,
Mm.
of noticing that you want something and maybe the impulse arises to pursue it, ask for it, but then they're just like, wait, no, hold on, I can't
Totally.
I can't jump right to that. I need to like come up with the plan. I need to do the analysis. I need to
Yes.
so that I
Yes.
can avoid the the
Mm.
scariness of what happens when I just ask for it simply because I want it. The scariness of potential disconnection.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would add to that? I hear that you saying I think so. I don't want to.
No, I was just thinking like, I guess that's also like both external of what other people say, what about this relationship that's
Yeah,
going to end because I brought this up. And I was thinking probably there's some like internal relationship part too. Because I was even thinking of like, yeah, again, when I want to order Uber Eats, first it's like, okay, do you need to? Do you have other food? Okay, is there even anything you want?
yeah,
Okay, out of these, like, what do you want? And I think again that feeling of like, listen, man, I just wanted to order like ramen. That I just it's like, okay, but listen, there's a 2 for 1 for the pizzas, and you really like this pizza, but also
yeah,
look, this is going to take it. So I think like again, there's no external party involved there. It's like just me trying to order food in one way or another.
yeah,
And that still comes up of like, oh, but justify, find the reason. You can't just like want the ramen. You need to make sure it's the best thing you actually want to get.
yeah,
Like the what is it? The like variables are undefined. We don't know what makes it the best, but you just need to you
yeah.
just need to make sure it is the best.
Right, right. Because if you don't, then you're gonna have to feel something.
Yes.
What's that? Regret or just being cut off from yourself? What's the thing?
What is it? Something like the area it's in is like disappointed, dismissive, sort of like, oh, of course, you didn't think it through. You just picked what you wanted. Yeah, and here we are. Mm-hmm. Like that sort of feeling. I don't know what the word for that is. Like you were lazy, you didn't think about it, and you ended up here. Makes sense.
Sounds like shame to me.
Yeah, I guess so, which feels weird to me, but also feels right.
What feels weird to you about it?
They're like, what is shame about what? Like about getting some food and then being like, oh no, I actually wish I'd gotten something else instead. I was wrong about what I wanted. Like just logically it's hard for me to connect those dots.
shame doesn't always operate in a logical way. So what if you just simply sat with this sense that, oh, there's some part of you that's feeling shame or could be feeling shame around these decisions without having to figure it out?
Yeah.
What would that part of you need?
I think to also just be accepted and acknowledged. Because I feel like there's never a time where I'm like, hey, cool, you're here. It either makes me more like, okay, I need to analyze more. You're right. I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Or to be like, why are you here? Just let me eat my food. Just let me pick the food that I want. This sucks. But there's never like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. All that analysis is another form of avoidance.
But like productive avoidance.
Oh, yeah, sure. We can dress it up however we want.
But yeah, no, totally. I hear you.
So,
Yes, very much.
so what happens if you just do that right now? There's this part of you that feels that. You were just saying, just acknowledging it.
It feels like immediately lighter.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just offer something while you're in this space. Just see what happens if you welcome this part of you from your heart.
Yeah, it feels like a lot more relaxed, almost collaborative versus like, get out of here. No, I can't believe you're here again. It's like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
cool, welcome, nice to see you.
Yeah.
And it just like creates less, or it releases some of the tension around like, no, leave me alone. No, just let me make this decision.
Right.
And it's like, oh, there's room for all of us here. Cool.
Yeah. I just want to point out that earlier in the beginning of this, there, as you were describing the tension, that felt like a lot of this internal fighting happening. And now you just seem way more like a host who's just welcoming their guests into the house.
And I think that's a lot more what it feels like. Yeah, it just feels like roomier.
Yeah. So what's it like for you just to be in this space right now, noticing that? Yeah.
I think for 1 second it's really nice. And then second 1.1, I'm like, cool, so have we fixed it? Can we go back to like, can I just do the things now?
Yeah.
So
That part gets to be here too.
yeah, it's just I'm just laughing because I was thinking of like my dog again when I tell her sit and she'll do it for 1 second, then she'll pop up and she'll be like, I did it, we're done, we did the thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's not like a checkbox to be like, yes, complete, now give me the treat.
Yeah.
No, we gotta stay here.
And is your dog better or worse at that right now than 6 months ago?
She's gotten better. She's gotten better.
Yeah.
And
Probably
again,
because you've been insistent on just the practice.
yes. Yeah, now she does it by herself sometimes.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Amazing. It's totally normal for the habitual reaction to pop right back up. You get a glimpse at something different, and then it's like, well, hold on. I've been spending years, decades, whatever, like reacting to the world in a completely different way, the one that's very familiar to me.
Yeah.
So, of course, you do something a little bit different from the norm, you're going to get all sorts of parts of your system that's just going to be like, wait a second, hold on.
Yeah.
Let's keep doing the thing we keep doing. But what would happen if each day just had like 1% more of just this roominess, the spaciousness of just welcoming what's happening for you?
Yeah, I think even like given where we started, it makes me feel like, oh, there's no, it's not that it's right to be on one spectrum or the other. It's that it feels like there will be room to make the choice as needed.
Hmm.
So it's like, cool, you know what? This job that came my way, it does seem awesome. I don't really want to look for other stuff. I'm good to just go here. And then other times it'll be like, I don't want to just fly into this. I really feel like I need to maybe push myself a little bit or just compare a few other options because I'm not really convinced
Yeah.
on what I see in front of me.
Yeah.
And I think being a choice that's not like, I don't know, super reactive or where you're like, oh God, I have to. This is the only, no, you suck if you don't do it this way. If you can just be like, I think for this job, this tool makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's what it would allow.
Yeah. And I also just noticed that you, in the first part of that example, you're just like, oh, I don't think I want this thing. And then when you were getting a little bit more of that like reactiveness, it's like, oh, I have to
Mm.
do this thing.
Excuse me, totally.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's not about what is right to me or this moment. It's just what is the way this needs to be done
Yeah.
that is objectively correct and will let me like reference it in the future if I ever need to provide proof
Yeah.
of this option.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, as I think you're probably seeing, that's not anything objective. It's simply just a defense mechanism against
Yes.
getting rejected or being wrong or even their own internal critical stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you really nailed it where like shame is the emotion that comes up of like, oh God, I made a wrong choice. And I can't even point to any reason why I did that. I just gotta own that.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we start to wrap this, I just want to come back to you, Nina, and ask, what are you noticing most from the session? What are we, what we've been exploring?
Mm, one, I think the idea of shame is super interesting and one I've never really related to.
Hmm.
But I guess it's like I've just never put the pieces in the right order for me to see it or feel it. Um, so one, I think that's interesting. And to be like, oh, where else can I catch that coming up? Or can I see that when I start to go into that pattern?
Yeah.
Because it's interesting to kind of see that as the underpinning of why I go into both modes. Um, and then I think is always just the like slowing down and seeing what is there and accepting it for what it is. And being like, oh, okay, cool, I'm feeling this specific way. Oh, interesting. And then I'm having a feeling about the way that I'm feeling about this
Yeah.
thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, everybody who's here, like, come on in. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's bring you all in versus being like, oh God, no. Oh no, we're here again. Oh no, just let me order. Oh no.
Yeah.
So that's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just say that I've heard shame described as really just the cutting off of the bridge of connection. It's just from a biological perspective, it's some sense that it's like, oh, I am going to be cut off from others because of who I am. And that is scary. That is terrifying, right?
Yes.
Literally, it's going to mean survival or not.
Yeah.
And the antidote, as it were, is just to come back into connection. And what I heard you say was just allowing what's going on for you, i.e., connecting with what's happening for you, as opposed to pushing it out or analyzing it away.
Right. I really like that reflection.
Yeah. I hope it's useful.
Thank you.
Well, Nina, it's been a real pleasure spending this time with you today.
As always, Brian. Thank you. Same.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.
Nina's session took us deep into the heart of a dilemma many high achievers grapple with: the tension between striving for success and embracing life's natural flow. At first glance, Nina's tendency to meticulously analyze every decision seemed like a strength, but as we peeled back the layers, we uncovered a deeper truth. This habit wasn't just about making optimal choices. It was a clever disguise for fear and self-doubt. The breakthrough came when Nina dared to sit with her discomfort. By acknowledging her fears, instead of burying them under a mountain of analysis, she unlocked a new level of self-awareness. This shift allowed her to tap into her authentic desires and make decisions from a place of clarity rather than anxiety. Nina's journey reminds us that true growth often comes from unexpected places. It's not always about pushing harder or thinking more. Sometimes it's about having the courage to pause, to feel, and to embrace all aspects of our experience, even the ones we'd rather ignore. For the founders and leaders listening, this insight could be game-changing. In a world that often equates success with relentless forward motion, Nina's story offers a different perspective. What if your next big breakthrough isn't hiding in another late-night strategy session, but the quiet moments of self-acceptance? As you navigate your own path this week, consider this. Where might you benefit from loosening your grip? What insights might emerge if you allow yourself to experience your full range of emotions and thoughts without immediately jumping to problem-solving mode? Thank you for listening to Slow Down to Speed Up. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate it in your favorite podcasting app. If you are a founder who wants to reach the next level through coaching, or if you'd like to come on the show, please contact me at dashingleadership.com.